Hey guys, it's Troy, and welcome to another episode of Gold Standard. And today it is a slightly, how can I put it, a slightly late notice episode of the show. And the reason for that is because I wasn't sure what time I was going to do it because I've been out and about and I've been doing various things. And I put up a video earlier today anyway, which is about fashion and style. And you can see some wonderful fashion that I'm wearing here now with this new T-shirt that I've got. So yeah, I put up that video. Everything's been a little bit behind actually the last couple of days because I made that video yesterday. I was attempting to upload it yesterday. I've had some upload issues, so it didn't end up going out until today in the morning. And so then I would normally do a live stream or something today, and I hadn't really kind of planned what to do. But I decided I wanted to do one anyway, so I've got two uploads today. I've got that video about fashion, and then I've got this live stream, partly because I've got some new equipment and I want to test it. So let me know in the chat as we're going through the show if there's any sort of lagging or if the speed of the picture seems good and seems to be well connected with my voice and everything, because I'm trying to sort of iron out those issues which I've had. I've had some like little technical issues at doing live streams over the last little while. So I'm trying to iron those out. So let me know if it all sounds all right, if it's all sort of like syncing well, and if there's any lagging or anything like that. Anyway, so look, I want to get into it today. And what I want to talk about today is a quote from The Art of Seduction by Robert Greene. I think you can see that there. Amazing book. Referred to it quite a lot recently. It's about the second or third time I've read it. I'm going through it now. Obviously, I've got this paperback issue. I'm making like loads of notes and sort of like underlining stuff in there and everything, because it is an amazing resource. It's not really like a sort of a game book. It's not sort of like like you might get like Tom Torero and it's sort of like, oh, how to go out and do day game or something like that. It's not like that. It's not quite that obvious, but it is nevertheless a book that it's got some real deep insights about female psychology, also male psychology, and the psychology behind seduction in general. So it's funny because I was on Twitter the other day, right, and Joe Lampton was on there, and he did a tweet basically saying the highest pinnacle you can get of player, if you like, is the guy that runs webcams. And of course, he runs a webcam business. You know, he's affiliated with the Tates over in Romania. He's like, yeah, man, webcams and pimp guys. That's like the highest echelons of knowledge around this stuff. And then beneath that, you've got pickup artists and sort of people who are in the dating scene. And then below that, he said you've got Robert Greene and you've got armchair writers like that. And of course, I'm sitting in an armchair now. Actually, look. So I'm actually one of these armchair pundits myself. But anyway, I went back to Joe. I mean, Joe's, I think, is a good guy. I mean, I read his book about game, which I've actually got an affiliate link to. I might stick it in the description for this. It's an expensive PDF. He's charging about $200 for it, but it is called Obsessed. His his thinking, what he's trying to get across in that book is how to get women actually obsessed with you. So this goes beyond just sort of like, oh, how to make her like you or how to open her when you're on the street or you're at a party or whatever. This is like how to make her really obsessed. And do you know what? It's good stuff. It is good stuff. I mean, it's only short. It's $200. If you want to buy it, I would ask you if you can purchase it through my affiliate link, which I will stick below, because then I get some of the filthy lucre, which will obviously be very nice for me when I go on holiday. So you have to bear that in mind. It is short, but it is good. He does know what he's talking about. He does understand female psychology. And if you guys have read Pimp by Iceberg Slim, which again I would recommend you read, is a classic really of the genre. And that guy was an actual pimp, and he was writing about that industry and how it all works and everything. And it's pretty hard-hitting stuff. It's not nice, polite stuff, but it is very telling and it is very interesting, particularly if you're interested in all of that dark triad stuff that we talk about. So yeah, I mean, I would recommend you grab a copy of Pimp by Iceberg Slim just for the interest of it. But if you want to get Joe Lampton's book, Obsessed, as I say, I'll drop the link below. It's not there at the moment, but I will drop it down there. And yeah, you know, grab hold of it. But it is quite expensive. That's all I can say. So, and it's relatively short. So don't shoot me. But yeah, he knows what he's talking about. And you know, he's a guy who runs webcams. He deals with a lot of women. He dated a lot of women, beautiful women. And so, yeah, he knows what he's on about, along with the Tate guy. But anyway, so he was kind of slating Robert Greene a little bit. He was saying, well, Robert Greene's just an armchair observer and he doesn't understand the game in the way that I do, in the way probably like the Tates do and people like that. And I came back and I said, well, yes, I mean, I broadly agree with that because I think there is truth in what he said. However, I think that with somebody particularly like Greene, you can't underestimate his contribution to the space in this book. You can't underestimate his intelligence. You can't underestimate his analytical power because Robert Greene is a great writer. I mean, I love 48 Laws of Power. I love Mastery. I love that one with 50 Cent. Yeah, you know, I love all of his stuff. He's an incredibly incisive guy, very, very intelligent. And this book is no exception. And what he does in this is he's gone through all of these different texts. So from things like Dangerous Liaisons, the original novel, 18th century French novel, to the Diaries of Casanova, to Ovid's The Art of Love, to various other texts from 18th century France, Sigmund Freud. I mean, just all of these different source materials, and he's pulled out the evidence around seduction. He's sort of extracted from all of that source material what works in terms of seduction, and it's incredibly powerful stuff. So I don't know much about Robert Greene himself. Somebody said on a previous stream that he considered himself a bit of a rake, which is one of his definitions in here. I need to check out some interviews with him actually to find out. I don't get the impression he's some big player or anything like that. But for me, I don't think that necessarily matters. I mean, I think for me, he knows his stuff. If a guy's ideas stand up to scrutiny, and they certainly do in this book, most of it, not all of it, but most of it, then, you know, you've got to give the guy credence for that. So just because he's not running a webcam business, well, who is? I'm certainly not. You know, there's only very few people who are doing that. It doesn't mean that he's got no contribution at all. Anyway, that's a little bit of a detour, but let's get to what I wanted to talk about today. So as I said, I've been rereading this at the moment, and I'm on a section. What am I? Yeah, I'm on a okay, right. So I'm on a chapter called "Choose the Right Victim," which sounds terribly sinister, and you can imagine people not liking that very much if they saw this video or they read the book. But I don't think he means it. I mean, I think victim is a sort of a, you know, I don't think it's quite as sinister as it sounds. He means to select the person that you target, or the person you should approach. Excuse me. Yeah. So anyway, and there's a section called Keys to Seduction, which I thought was really interesting. So I want to read it to you now. Okay, it says, throughout life, we find ourselves having to persuade people to seduce them. Some will be relatively open to our influence, if only in subtle ways, while others seem impervious to our charms. Perhaps we find this a mystery beyond our control, but that is an ineffective way of dealing with life. Seducers, whether sexual or social, prefer to pick the odds. As often as possible, they go toward people who betray some vulnerability to them and avoid the ones who cannot be moved. So in other words, the effective seducer doesn't just randomly target people. He targets those people who appear to be open to him, who appear to, you know, who the odds are looking good that they're going to be receptive to his approach. And this is obviously common sense, a good thing to do. To leave people who are inaccessible to you alone is a wise path. You cannot seduce everyone. On the other hand, you must actively hunt out the prey. Again, that's a slightly loaded word, but let's allow him some poetic license. You must actively hunt out the prey that responds the right way. This will make your seduction that much more pleasurable and satisfying. Okay, so you're looking for people, you're looking for women who respond to you in a positive way, or are giving you some sort of signal that they're going to be open to you coming up to them and seducing them, which is obviously a good thing. How do you recognize your victims? Okay, again, poetic license. By the way they respond to you. You should not pay much attention to their conscious response. A person who is obviously trying to please or charm you is probably playing to your vanity and wants something from you. Now, this actually is very, very true. And I'll tell you where this is very, very telling. This is very, very applicable when guys go to somewhere like Eastern Europe, or they go to Russia, or they go to Ukraine or something like that. And they go to an area where there are a number of prostitutes, where there are a number of ladies of the night wandering around. This is happens in Prague as well, actually. And these women will come up to the guys and be very, very friendly and be like, oh my God, you look so handsome. Are you British? How long are you here for? You're such a, suave, sophisticated looking guy. And the guy buys into it. The guy's there going, oh my God, she really likes me. And of course she doesn't. She just wants money. She's a hooker. So yeah, you need to be, and that's obviously that's a very obvious kind of overt example of what I'm talking for. But in general, if somebody is too complimentary to you and somebody is too willing to give it all up, then you've got to be a bit suspicious of that, okay? Who's trying to charm you is probably playing to your, Instead, pay greater attention to those responses outside conscious control. A blush, an involuntary measuring of some mirroring of some gesture of yours, an unusual shyness, even perhaps a flash of anger or resentment. So you're looking at body language and you're looking at those little tells. And if you got onto John Modern Life Dating's body language mastery course, then you'll be more than familiar with these. But I mean, things like the dilating of the pupils, brushing of the hair is the obvious one everyone talks about, but blushing, Robert Greene talks about, touching you, parting the lips, doing that kind of like slightly masturbatory thing with the stem of a wine glass. There are all these little tells. Legs crossed when she's facing you, feet facing you, all of these little tells. So what Robert Greene is saying here is that don't worry too much about what she says, and instead concentrate on what she's doing, what her body language is revealing, which of course is very good sense. All of these show that you are having an effect on the person who is open to your influence, right? So you've targeted, if you're talking to the girl and she's doing these things, then she's you want to hang in there, because this is obviously a good bet. And then he says, like Valmont, and here he's talking about Valmont, who is the main character in Dangerous Liaisons, the novel, which I'm reading at the moment. It's very, very good. The 18th century, I think, or maybe 17th century French novel about seduction, etc. If you've seen the film, you might have read it, or maybe you've seen the film Cruel Intentions with Reese Witherspoon and Ryan Philippe, which came out in the 90s, I think. I saw it again recently. It's very, very good, worth watching. That was a modern update of Dangerous Liaisons, which is about basically this very decadent sort of seducer dude and this girl that he wants to have sex with, but who is holding out on him because she is as manipulative and twisted as he is. And she asks him to manipulate somebody for her in order to cause a social stir. And she basically says, look, if you can get this girl into bed, then I will sleep with you as your reward. So that's the motor, the engine of the plot, if you like. Anyway, so he says, like Valmont, who's this guy in the novel, Dangerous Liaisons, you can also recognize the right targets by the effect they are having on you. Perhaps they make you uneasy. Perhaps they correspond to a deep-rooted childhood ideal or represent some kind of personal taboo that excites you, or suggests the person you imagine you would be if you were the opposite sex. Okay, so this is a bit freaky now, isn't it? So it's basically saying, if you see a girl who you think you would be if you were the opposite sex, then that's a girl you should approach. That's a little bit freaky. I know that sounds weird, but bear with it, because this makes a lot of sense. Then he says, when a person has such a deep effect on you, it transforms all your subsequent maneuvers. Your face and gestures become more animated. You have more energy. when victims resist you for when victims resist you, which a good victim should, you in turn will be more creative, more motivated to overcome their resistance. Okay, so you're going to put in more groundwork basically. But if they're resistant to you, the seduction will move forward like a good play. Your strong desire will infect the target and give them the dangerous sensation that they have power over you. Of course, you are the one ultimately in control, since you are making your victims emotional at the right moments, leading them back and forth. Good seducers choose targets who inspire them, but they know how and when to restrain themselves. Okay, so look, there's some really important stuff in here, or there's some stuff that really resonated with me in here, which is why I wanted to talk about it today. First off, he's basically saying, if you see somebody of the opposite sex who particularly excites you, then that is a good bet for who you should be approaching. And I think that in itself, you could probably write a whole book about that, because that is such an important idea for a number of reasons. And I'll explain why in a minute. And he then goes on to say that when you do this, the other benefit of it is that you're just going to be much more inspired. You're just going to be much more motivated to do the seduction. And that's really important too. And then he goes on to say that it's going to go well, or it's going to move forward like a good play, because you are also giving them the sense of being in control. Now, that bit I'm not sure I entirely agree with, but I think there's a few things here that we need to pull out. So firstly, the first bit of this is saying, if you really like the girl, if you see somebody and you are deeply attracted to them, there's some sort of really fundamental pull there between the two of you, then you really need to approach that girl. And this is just bringing this now into sort of more modern day dating advice. That's a really important thing. And it's important for a couple of reasons. Firstly, it's important because the whole point of getting into this stuff, the whole point of watching videos and reading stuff about this and sort of trying to get good at this stuff, is because you want to get the girls, you want to be with the girls you actually want to be with, right? I mean, there's no point in getting into this stuff and that only to end up dating girls who are sort of mediocre, or you're not actually that interested in. You know, you want to get with the girls that you actually like. And in order for that to happen, obviously you're going to have to approach them. That's just, it stands to reason, okay? But a lot of the time guys won't. And I mean, you know, I've been guilty of this. Everyone's been guilty of this. But a lot of the time, what will happen is this: a guy will go out, say to the bar or to the lounge or the nightclub or whatever, or even, you know, during the daytime or wherever he is, and it's whatever the social event is. And he will see a number of girls, he'll see a number of women that, you know, he is attracted to, who look nice, who he'd like to start a conversation with. And so he does so, but then all of a sudden he'll see a girl who is suddenly he sees girls, she's like, oh my God, she is amazing. There's just something about her. I don't know what it is. There's just something about her. It's tugging me on this really deep level. And so I'm not going to approach her. And why does he do that? Well, he does it because he's afraid of the outcome, because the stakes seem higher. The more attractive that she is, the higher that the stakes seem. Okay, so I think I've expressed this previously in a different video, but it's sort of like, if you go and talk to, if she passes the boner test seducer, yeah, I mean, yeah, that's the short way of putting it. Maybe Robert Greene should have just put that in the book, you know. Basically, if she passes the boner test seducer, he could have just done the whole chapter like that. Yeah, you know, guys are afraid to put themselves on the line when they really like the girl, because it seems like the stakes are higher. Okay, so imagine if someone holds a gun to your head now and says, go out and chat somebody up, go out and speak to a girl and ask for a phone number. Then you do it. You could do it, obviously, but you might well let yourself off the hook. and just approach anybody. You might approach a lady that you're just not attracted to at all, or a lady who you don't have that visceral sort of attraction to, or you just go for anybody, wouldn't you? And the reason that, if you get rejected by somebody that you weren't really that into, it just feels less painful. It feels less piquant, as the French might say. It feels less significant. And you can sort of laugh about it afterwards, because you can say to your friends, yeah, well, I wasn't really that into her anyway, so who cares what happens? It doesn't matter. It's all a bit of a laugh. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with being social. There's nothing wrong with socializing with lots of different people and seeing what the outcome is, because you can get into some cool situations. And sometimes there is a phenomenon sometimes where you might see somebody and they're not, that you don't have that initial like huge attraction, but you think, oh, she's quite nice, there's something about her, and then you go and have the conversation, and then as you get to know her, you realize that actually she is really, really attractive. You're so glad that you made that first move. But these ones that you've got that huge, big, powerful attraction to, there's an internal process that operates whereby you think, if I go and speak to her and then she tells me to get lost, then what's that going to say about me? What's that going to say? That's going to be significant. This is going to mean something, because I really like her. And so I'm not joking now. I'm not just doing this for a laugh. I'm doing this to actually really like her. And so if she says no, it's going to be painful, because it matters to me what her opinion of me is. Okay. That's really what it comes down to. It matters more to you what her opinion is. And so guys, and as I say, we've all done this. It's the way it is. Guys will therefore hold back on approaching those ladies because of that fear, because it just feels like the stakes are a lot higher. And so they let themselves off the hook. Vincent says the hottest girls usually have a lot of beta male orbiters around them, so it's harder to approach. That is true as well. That is absolutely true. Those girls tend to be surrounded by dudes, so it can make it harder. Alex says most successful guys in game say that getting the 8s, 9s, and 10s are not much different to the 6s and 7s. In your experience, how much is the case? Do advanced guys know something? Yeah, cool. Well, that's kind of the whole topic really of today, because broadly speaking, that's correct. But yeah, just to pick up on that thought, the sense that the stakes are too high with this really hot, really beautiful girl, really hot girl, prevents a lot of guys from making the move in the first place, when actually they should have done. But what Robert Greene is saying in the passage I read is that actually, when you see a girl who does have that really deep, profound effect on you, and he talks about, maybe it brings up some almost deep-rooted childhood sort of ideal, or represents some kind of personal taboo. So if there's something kind of sexy about her that you can't quite put your finger on, but it really fires you, then what he's saying is that is a good sign. That's a way to spot someone who might be open to you. Okay, and this is counterintuitive, right? And it took me quite a long time to understand this for myself, because it's sort of counterintuitive. Because I think that because of our insecurities, and because of the fact that we are, we tend to be a bit self-effacing and so on. We can have a tendency to think, if she's more attractive, we can have a tendency to think, well, she's less likely to like me. Okay, she's less likely to be into me, so I better not approach, because there's this potential that I could get rejected. But actually, and here's the really strange thing. Here's the really weird thing. In many occasions, the opposite can be true, because there is something in what Robert Greene is saying here. And it's hard to explain in any sort of rational terms, except to say that if you feel like that about her, if there's some sort of fundamental, you know the kind of thing I'm talking about, don't you? When you see that girl, you see that person, and it just really hits you on this kind of like deep level. You're like, oh my God. And sometimes I've expressed it like, it's almost like you recognize her. It's almost like you see the girl and you feel like you recognize her, and you're looking at her thinking, have I seen her before? Have we met before? And then you realize, and you maybe have to look back a couple of times, and then you realize you don't recognize her. It's just that it feels like you recognize her because in some way, and this is all operating on a subconscious level, there's some sort of connection between the two of you. Now, as I say, I can't explain this in any rational way, and I don't think I'm not saying it's some sort of like supernatural thing. I think it's just that I think it's just the way that you feel when you see somebody who, on some instinctual base level, is kind of your type, and you think you're going to gel with. And what you'll find is that a lot of the time, or not all the time, but some of the time, this will affect the girl as well. So you'll then get the girl looking at you, and the girl will look at you, and you'll have eye contact, and she'll look at you with this sort of slightly surprised look, and you can tell she's thinking the same thing. You can tell that she is also thinking, God, do I know that guy? Do I recognize that guy? And you're both looking at each other like, where do I know you from? Where do I know? And then you realize you don't know each other. It's just that you're attracted to one another. And so this goes back to something I read in a book many, many years ago. I never believed it at the time. It said something like, it's sometimes better to approach, to go and ask out for a date girls who you really, really fancy, because why do you really fancy them? Well, there's something sort of fundamental, and there's a sort of a likelihood that it's going to be reciprocated. Now, at the time, I thought, well, that's BS, isn't it? Because all the girls that I really like are very pretty, and they're out of my league, and so therefore I'm not going to get a look in. But there is something in it. There really is something in it. So that's the first thing that I want to pull out of this. That when you, and I hope, and give me a 1 in the chat if you know what I'm talking about, but I hope you know what I'm referring to here. It's when you see that girl, and it just, you might see 10 girls and you think, yeah, she's quite pretty, she's nice, she's quite pretty, and then you see that one girl and it's just like boom, it's just like it does something to you on a gut level. Give me a 1 in the chat if you know what I'm talking about. I suspect that you do, because I think it happens to everybody, and I think it happens to women as well. There are just certain people that, and Martin Amis, the English writer, refers to it as tugging on your DNA. It's like there's something so fundamental inside. It's like it's tugging on your DNA, and that, I think, is what Robert Greene is referring to here. And so when you see that girl who has that effect on you, when you see that girl who's like tugging on your DNA, then you must approach her, because, as I said, the first thing is you're really into her, and you owe it to yourself to give yourself the best chance to get with the girls that you're really into, because why not? So a lot of guys have said 1. And actually, this chap, Find the Formula, has said, like a DNA tug. Your body's telling you what you want. Yes, exactly. That's exactly it. It's like that DNA tug. So when you get that, despite the fact that you're nervous, and you probably will be nervous, you absolutely must approach, because that is a signal from your body that's telling you something. And it doesn't work every time, but there's a chance, there's quite a good chance that she's going to feel it too, because I think that we have this subconscious sense of each other, of other human beings, and how we respond and connect to them, that is telling, and it goes beyond our intelligence, if you like. It goes beyond our rational sense of how the world works. There is something going on here, and so when you see that girl, you need to approach. And as I say, firstly, because you deserve to get the girls that you really like, not the girls that you don't like. And secondly, because there's quite a good chance that she's going to reciprocate your feelings. Now, that doesn't mean that you're going to go in there and it's just going to be easy and you guys are just going to go and live happily ever after. But there is a chance that she's going to be feeling the same way. And this is what Greene is talking about, because this whole section, remember, was about shortening the odds. This whole section was about how do I do this a bit more efficiently. So that's the first thing. You go for these girls that you really, really like, even if you're scared, because there's got to be a good chance that it's going to lead to something. But here's the other thing, okay? And this is really important too. Regardless of whether she likes you or not, putting that to one side for a moment, he says, when a person has such a deep effect on you, it transforms all of your subsequent maneuvers. Okay, this is so true. Your face and your gestures become more animated. You have much more energy. Man, I mean, like, I can't tell you how true this is, right? Because I've obviously, I work with guys. I've taken guys out on coaching. I've been in many, many tens of thousands of interactions like this myself, and I'll tell you something for free, for nothing. When you go into an interaction with a girl, a lady that you're not particularly attracted to, then despite the fact that it might feel easier in inverted commas because you feel like the bar is lower, you feel like the pressure is lower, those interactions tend to have a lot less spark. They just tend to be a bit flat. They tend to be a bit nothingy, really. And what's the reason for that? Well, the reason is you're not actually that into it. I mean, it's simple stuff, but this is the crazy psychology that we have. We let ourselves off the hook. We think it's going to be easier for me to approach her because I don't believe she's out of my league. I think she's in my league, and so therefore it's going to be it's less intimidating for me to do that. But you walk into that interaction and you're not really feeling it. She can tell that. She can tell that, or not necessarily on a conscious level, but on some level she can understand it. I remember one time I was actually doing a bit of training I was being trained. I was in London. I was in Covent Garden, and I was with this guy who'd done a lot of day game, and he said to me, just go and talk to a girl. And I did a couple, but then I was like, I can't see. I can't see anybody that I really, really like here. And he said, look, you're making excuses for yourself. You need to just get out there and start approaching. So just go up to the next person you see, just go up and approach. So I saw this lady, and bless her, she wasn't my type at all. I didn't find her attractive, but I've been told to do this, so I walk up and I start the conversation with her. And unsurprisingly, it doesn't go very well, or it just kind of like it's a bit flat. Let me say goodbye, and it's like nice to meet you, and then walk off, and that's it. And then I came back to the guy who'd been instructing me, and he said, "Yeah, well, it's obvious why it didn't go very well because she could tell that you weren't into it." And I'm thinking, well, hang on a minute, man. You just told me to go up and approach anybody. So I felt a little bit aggrieved at the time. Because it's a bit like, well, hang on, what do you want me to do? But yeah, anyway, the lesson there is that if you're not really feeling it, it just doesn't come over very well. The interaction is lifeless and limp. It lacks energy. It lacks passion. It lacks that kind of like that sexual undertone. Now, when you go into an interaction where you are really feeling it, where you do really like the girl, you genuinely, and you feel that DNA tug, I mean, especially, then those interactions, even if you're nervous, and perhaps because you're nervous, those interactions can really be sparky. Those interactions can really have something about them. And it's kind of exciting. That's the thing. It's exciting for you because, okay, well, you might think the stakes are higher, and they're not really. I mean, it's just another girl. It's just one random person's opinion. It's statistically irrelevant, but while it feels more meaningful to you and it feels like the stakes are high, that also makes it more exciting. And like Greene says here, it makes you more desirous of a favorable outcome. So you're going to work harder to get that outcome. You're going to be more, as he says, creative. It's going to spark your brain because you're going to think, right, I want this to go in the right way. So what can I say next? What can I do next in order to spark this thing up? And it really brings an energy to the interactions that you just don't get when you're not really invested in it. Okay. And again, like Greene says, she's going to pick up on that too, which is the other valuable thing. Now, he then says this thing about it's going to give them the dangerous sensation that they have power over you. Well, I'm not entirely sure about that. I mean, the way that I tend to teach these interactions is that you're going in there and you're expressing that interest, but then you should be pulling back a little bit as well. You should be like teasing a little bit and joking around with her. You don't want to. I'm not saying that you go in there like a supplicating idiot and you're like, oh my God, you're so beautiful. You're the most beautiful girl in the world. Or that kind of thing. I'm not saying that, I think I lost a viewer then after that singing. Sorry about that. But, so you're not going in there like a supplicating idiot. So I'm not sure that you want to be aiming at her feeling like she has power over you. But I think what certainly does happen is that she picks up on the on the sort of erotic foundation of the interaction. She picks up on the fizzing energy of it, the sort of sexualized nature of it, and that is exciting. That's going to be exciting for both of you, and that's a good thing, you know. And that's really what you want in an interaction. You know, you want an interaction to fizz with desire that's just under the surface. You want it to fizz with intrigue and erotic tension. And if that's what people need to aim for, you know, you don't want to just be going in and having a chit chat like you're ordering a pizza and then walk off and that's it. You know, you want it to feel like there's a spark there. And the way that you get a spark there is if you're actually into it, because naturally there's going to be a spark there. Okay. Now, as I say, none of this is foolproof. None of this, it's not just to say, okay, well, I'm just going to walk, anybody that I'm attracted to, there's going to be that mutual connection there. So you walk up to, I don't know, who's an attractive, famous film star at the moment, or you walk up to, you know, somebody out of Little Mix or something, and it's going to be mutually, you know, Taylor Swift or Dua Lipa or somebody, and it's going to be mutually accepted. Not necessarily, because of course, you know, other factors come into this as well. There's obviously competition for those top tier individuals and so on. But in principle, it's certainly worth a shot if you're feeling that deep pull, because as Greene says, the chances are that she's going to feel it on some level as well. And you do get that added excitement. And as I say, really, not so much that I wouldn't be aiming for trying to feed her this idea that she has power over you. That's certainly not something you intentionally want to do, because as always, really, you want to be the one in control. You want to be giving the impression that you are the, you know, you're the boss in the interaction, let's say, putting it colloquially. But certainly what happens is that you can pull her into this sort of very quite sexy, like little bubble between the two of you. And that's when it's going to be successful. That's certainly when it can be a successful interaction, because as I say, that's exciting. And, you know, and that's what you want to do. You want to leave an impression of excitement. So then if you take a phone number, and you leave, you want her to remember that, and you want her to remember that with positive associations. So she thinks back and she's like, "Wow, that was cool. This guy, he just came out of nowhere, and he was exciting and kind of sexy, and like, you know, I want to find out more." That's the impression that you want to leave. You don't want to leave the impression of like, "Oh yeah, this guy came up, he was all right. You know, it's a bit boring. Gave him the number, whatever. I probably won't, you know, respond when he texts, and that's it." You know. Andrew says, approached 3 girls talking together. Approached one of them at the table in the bowling alley and told her if I got a strike, she would have to get a drink with me. I got a gutter ball. Epic fail. Oh, okay. Well, that's, yeah, bowling game. I mean, did you say to her, let's go for drinks anyway, because my game is so shit that you know, I need commiserating, so why don't we go for a drink anyway? I don't know, really. I mean, it's hard. It's tough when you make it contingent on something and then that thing doesn't go your way, because then it's sort of like it gives her a good excuse to not you know, go through with whatever you asked of her. What did Vince say? I had that feeling at the gym with a girl I seen. The feeling was so powerful, I stopped my workout to approach her. Yeah, exactly. You know, I tell you what. So one time, right, I was going for a run. Okay, because I run quite. I've been running a little bit less recently. I've been doing the gym more, but I like running. I think it's psychologically it's good. I enjoy it. Good time to, you know, think and all the rest of it. Anyway, I'm doing this run, and I'm running through Peckham of all places. So anybody who's from London here will know Peckham, and you know, I mean, it's got quite trendy now, but it's not the it wasn't the most sort of bougie of areas, let's say, particularly when I was living quite near to there. So I was running through Peckham, and I'm running down this street by this council estate, and I see this girl as I'm running, and I'm obviously sweating. I'm wearing my running gear, shorts. You know, I look like a fucking, you know, I'm not looking like a suave, sophisticated kind of, you know, the usual kind of impression that I'm making. And yeah, and I see this girl, and she's coming towards me, and she's like really cute. And she's from the estate, you know. She's like, I don't know. She looks, yeah, I don't know. She looked probably in many ways quite different to me, but I saw her and I was like, whoa, there's something about her. I really like that. I really like her. And so I stopped the run and turned off. I'm listening to my music and I turned off the music, stopped the run, like sweating, like, excuse me. I know this is really unusual, but I'm running down the road. I just had to stop you because you look really nice. And, we had a chat. It was very nice. I get the phone number, get texting, and then, we end up dating afterwards. So that kind of thing can work. And by the way, the good thing about doing an approach during physical exercise, or when you are sort of exercising or your blood's pumping, is that you're kind of naturally in state because of the physical activity that you're doing. So that it kind of actually raises your state, which is a good thing. But yeah, I mean, it's just an example of when you get that visceral feeling that it's really worth going for it, regardless of what you're doing. And actually as well, I mean, regardless actually of what you're wearing and how you look and how you're feeling, because, and this is a tough one to get over. And I will always advise guys, you should try to look good when you go out. You should try to always be dressed well. You should try to have your hair done and all that kind of stuff, because you never know when you're going to see one of these DNA tugger girls. But even if you're not looking optimal, even if you're not feeling great, you should still do the approach anyway, because those women don't come along all the time. This doesn't happen. I mean, it happens sporadically by definition, because you're not going to get that click with everybody. You only get it with a few people. So you're not going to see them all the time. So when you do see them, you should get in there and you should make the approach, even if you're not feeling optimal. Because if she's got that sort of subconscious communication sense from you as well, which she might, then the fact that you're looking a bit scruffy, or you're not wearing your best clothes, or your hair's a bit messy, is not going to make any difference, because the connection is on a much deeper level than that. So you should absolutely go in and speak to her anyway. All right, look, I hope that was helpful. I hope you enjoyed that. I'm going to have to get off now because I've got to make a call in a minute to a client. But yeah, I mean, I would highly recommend that you grab Seduction by Robert Greene. It's an amazing book. There's some great insights in here. But even more than that, even better than that, you want to grab Renegade Dating Blueprint, which is my collection of 11 books about dating, about game, about the sexual marketplace, all of this stuff that we're talking about, and we talk about on this channel. It's all in there in these 11 books I've written over the last 5 years. It's an amazing deal, because really I could be selling all those separately for about $250, but they're in a bundle. It's $39, PDFs, instantly downloadable. Go to the link below. Also, do sign up for my email list. So I do a daily email. I send out an email every day, Monday to Friday, with an article in it where I tackle this kind of thing. Actually, tonight's email is actually on this same topic. So if you sign up now, then you can, if it's whenever you're watching this, but if you're watching this on Wednesday and it's before 11 p.m. GMT, then sign up and you'll get that email. And I actually discuss the very same issue that we've been discussing on this stream, because I think it's so important. So sign up for that. Absolutely free. And also do subscribe to my channel. Subscribe to this YouTube channel. Hit just below the video, hit that subscribe button. Absolutely free. No obligation. All it means is that whenever I put up a new video, and I'm uploading a lot here at the moment, you will get instant notification of it. It won't just be you having to search around or think, oh, has he done another video yet? I don't know, blah, blah, blah. You'll get instant notification. You'll be able to keep up to date with all of my latest content. So do subscribe to the YouTube channel as well. Give this video a like if you can. It's great to, helps me to spread the word, helps me to, to attract more subscribers. And that means that I can continue to put out this world-class content for you. And that's my alarm. So I'm going to have to go now. Hope you enjoyed the show. I'll speak with you soon. Bye-bye.